Progressive rock is what you could call a dead genre. Its time in the public spotlight has long since ended, only arguably lasting 10 years from 1969 to 1979. During this time, the influential bands set the tone for the genre in the coming years, before getting bored themselves of the formulaic nature and moving on to greener pastures, while those who stuck with it stagnated and disappeared from the mainstream. When I hear any non-prog rock fan explain why they're not interested in listening to prog rock, it's always the same reasons. 1. Every prog rock has the same instrumentation: drums, bass, vocals, guitar, and keyboard. 2. Every album has at least one 10 to 20 minute song that features solos from at least the guitarist and keyboardist, with some complex time signature in the middle to show off technical proficiency. This is obviously a blanket statement and not true for every prog rock band, or it is true but fans love these qualities anyways. But outsiders to the genre do feel this way about them. One band, King Crimson, manages to stay out of this trap of similar sounds. Most listeners hear King Crimson as a lot of noise with no logic behind it, while hardcore fans love their chaotic qualities. But all of this is deliberate. How does King Crimson do it? Or rather, what makes King Crimson good? In the early days, King Crimson fit very much into that guitar, bass, drums, keyboard, and vocals mold. Their biggest deviation was the inclusion of flute and saxophone as well as jazz influences. They were still experimental, but so was everyone else at the time. It was on their fifth album, Lark's Tongues in Aspect, that their composition truly deviated from the norm. Their lineup included guitar, bass, vocals, drum, an alternate percussion section, violin, and the mellotron. The combination of these instruments under band headman Robert Fripp created a sound that was truly unique. This would continue through their next two albums, Starless and Bible Black and Red. In these albums, the saxophone and other brass instruments would make their return to the lineup. King Crimson's sound at this point was that of a ragtag orchestra, each member contributing equally to every song. After the Lark's Tongues in Aspect era, the group was revived in 1981 with a new lineup and a brand new sound. Now that prog had died in the mainstream, King Crimson kept the spirit of prog alive with a new approach to songwriting. With a foundation of guitar, bass, vocals, and drums, they were supplemented by the Chapman Stick, now a King Crimson staple, and other electronic sounds. Notice I didn't mention keyboards. These electronic sounds were all created using guitar effects pedals and quirky abuse of the guitar by new lead singer Adrian Belew. In Three of a Perfect Pair, more electronic sounds would be added in accordance to the band's new industrial influences. On top of the compositional changes, the tones of the instruments were changed to adapt to their current styles. Drummer Bill Bruford was experimenting with cymbal-less acoustic and electric drum kits, of which the latter went on to become another King Crimson staple. The guitar sounds were now doubled and focused on cleaner chorusy sounds played by Fripp and Belew in tandem. In King Crimson's modern era, 1995 to present, the electronic sounds have been stripped, aside from making a few appearances in background soundscapes, in favor of a heavier, hard-hitting guitar rock sound. In Thrack, an experimental double trio was used, with 2 guitarists, 2 bassists, and 2 drum kits. This was interesting because the new songs were written so that each trio would be playing a slightly different version of each song. If prog rock is known for having lengthy songs, complex solos, and intricate time signatures tightly woven together, then King Crimson wouldn't be farther from that. Early in their career, before that prog rock formula was solidified, King Crimson used the long song format to allow their individual musicians to solo over top of each other in their signature chaotic style. In the Lark's Tongues era, solos became a thing of the past. Instead of having a specific section of a song dedicated to letting 1 or 2 musicians in the spotlight to show off their crazy technical prowess, King Crimson divided up their instrumental music from their vocal tracks. Songs with vocals would not have solos, while songs without vocals were tightly focused instrumental pieces with flourishes added by each member. Outside of this, songs that were completely improvised were recorded either live or in studio and released in albums as songs. Instead of wanting to brag about how fast they can play in weird time signatures, King Crimson was focused on showing off how in sync each member was with the other, in some cases differentiating between a completely improvised song and a written instrumental song is almost impossible. Personally, I'm still unsure that Fracture from Starless and Bible Black is not an improvised song. Instead of wasting time by leaving room for each member to solo, King Crimson embraced the chaos and let each member solo in unison with the others. This attribute of King Crimson was a part of John Wetton's influence over the band, and when he left it after Red, the completely improvised songs were put to the side in favor of Adrian Belew's pop-influenced sounds. A new method of songwriting was born here. Songs would be written and rehearsed like any other mainstream song, but one instrument would be left to do whatever they pleased over top, combining both the improv and rehearse qualities into one, while maintaining that chaotic King Crimson feel. For example, in Elephant Talk, all the instruments are rehearsed, while Adrian Belew is left to scream about different forms of conversation over top. In Sheltering Sky, the percussion and bass are rehearsed, while the guitar does whatever it wants. This brand of songwriting is interesting and distinctly King Crimson. In their modern years, the psychedelic influence has returned to King Crimson, while any connection to conventional songwriting has broken down. Now that the members are getting older or replaced with newer ones, their studio albums have slowed down in production, and live albums seem to be the name of the game for the time being. This can be jarring for fans of past iterations of the King Crimson essence, but welcoming it with an open heart is truly a rewarding experience. Well, that's what, to me, makes King Crimson still interesting after all these years. It's very rare that a classic rock band manages to stay true to themselves decade after decade without relying on their previous work to keep them afloat in popularity. It should be a testament to artistic integrity that King Crimson has managed to keep producing new, interesting music into the modern era, while reimagining their old songs into the new vision.